Hey guys, it's King DX, and today we're going to be talking about the Monster Hunter World Beta that just ended about a week and a half ago. Now, this was my first time ever really playing a Monster Hunter game, so it was very fascinating for me to get into the world that Capcom created for us and play around and see kind of what I thought and get my take on that particular franchise. Now, just to give you a little bit of background, I've always wanted to play the Monster Hunter series, but normally it's been out on consoles that I didn't own. And this time around, Monster Hunter World is going to be on PlayStation 4. So with that, I decided to partake in the beta, and I enjoyed myself. It was very it was a little, I guess, dumbed down. That's what I got when kind of going online and seeing what other people had to say about it. It seems like some of the experience was dumbed down as far as like making your own items and setting up traps and things of that nature. A lot of those things from the main game apparently didn't really showcase themselves well in the beta, especially to newer players. But apparently, those are things that are staples of the series, and the fans of the series seem to believe that those features will be coming along in the final product. Capcom's also put out a statement essentially saying that a lot of things that were missing in the beta will be available in the retail version of the game. So I can only assume that they're hopefully telling the truth. Now, for me, I've played a game that I think was somewhat similar to Monster Hunter. So I played a game on the Vita called Soul Sacrifice, and it had a very similar. You go in, you have these missions, you go in, kill a bunch of enemies, you get items that you can essentially use to make new weapons, make your gear stronger, and that's essentially all you do. It's basically like a rinse and repeat. You go in, you set traps, you do all that fun stuff, and then you essentially level up with it, which is the basic premise of Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter, you're in a world where you go around, you find monsters, and you and your team, you find a way to trap those monsters, defeat those monsters, and then you harvest whatever items are left behind once that monster has been defeated. Which in my mind is a pretty basic concept. The one thing that really wanted me to get involved with Monster Hunter originally was, I think it was the first Lost Planet actually. There was a boss, I think it was like a salamander, and I remember playing it with four people, and the salamander could eat someone from your team, and then that person could be inside fighting the monster while people outside were fighting the monster. I just thought that was the greatest concept ever, and I always wanted a game that kind of just centered around that one thing. So that's kind of what I always thought Monster Hunter was. So playing Monster Hunter, I didn't play on a PS4 Pro. Now I have a PS4 Pro, but I actually played it on my regular PlayStation, and it wasn't graphic wise. It was okay. It wasn't necessarily the best, but I hear on a PS4 Pro it's actually pretty stunning on a 4K TV. So sadly, at the time, I didn't have my setup for it. I would have loved to have played it on my Pro, but I didn't get a chance to. So really sorry about that. I wish I could have given you a bit more clarity on the differences between it running on a traditional PlayStation 4 versus PlayStation 4 Pro. Now, going back to the game itself, some of the aspects that I really wanted to get into, like I said, creating your own armor, things of that nature, I couldn't because they weren't accessible in the beta. But I did get to do all the missions on all the different modes. I played beginner, intermediate, and I also played expert, and I was able to succeed on every single mission. Now, the one bad thing that the beta did, in my opinion, is they did a horrible job of really explaining how to play the game to people who haven't played the series before. It wasn't until after the beta ended, almost literally an hour after the beta ended, that I figured out what you were supposed to do to actually mount an enemy. And I'm sure it was a tip that popped up at some point in time, but the tips were coming and going so quickly that I never got a chance to figure it out. And it seems like that was a great way to do damage to enemies, so sucks that I never really got a chance to try that out myself. It would have been nice to really go around and solo a lot of these different bosses, and a lot of people have put out some very great videos of them soloing, all these great gigantic beasts that kind of roam around the area. I never personally got a chance to do that myself or experience that. It would have been great to do so, but ultimately I was still trying to learn the combat, get my footing, so it didn't really work out for me. Now, originally when it came to fighting monsters and tracking them down, it felt it didn't really feel like I was tracking. Like I was kind of feeling like I was gonna be able. I mean, you see footprints, you find things like dong, you know, poop and stuff like that. But I was thinking that there was gonna be some type of pattern. Like a lot of times, I would find footprints, in my opinion, that seemed to be leading in a direction, and then once I got there, they would all of a sudden be pointing the opposite direction. So it was almost like the monster had, come that way, then gone back that way, and it was sometimes kind of confusing to me. I'm like, I don't see the point of finding a footprint unless it's very, fresh and it's gonna actually have some type of meaningful development. But there were definitely times where I kind of found myself doing a circle, just picking up footprints and going, okay, where the fuck is this monster at? And it took a while. So I wasn't as thrilled as I hoped I'd be about the tracking. Maybe some of the tracking parts were limited to the game, and I'm not 100% sure. But I would have liked to have seen, maybe like broken tree branches or patches of grass moved out the way, or maybe, in the distance I see a bunch of birds or some type of, fowl kind of flying off in a different direction. I can kind of use that to help pinpoint and locate these different beasts that roam the world. I think things like that would have been really great to me, and I'm sure that this game probably has some more of that. I didn't really get that sense from the beta. To me, the beta seemed more like just run around, find some footprints, hit X, run around, find more footprints, and hopefully you'll get lucky and eventually run into the beast. Maybe that's because there's an error on my end that I'm not seeing yet, and I'm sure maybe once the full retail game comes out, I will see the error of my ways, and I can come back to this and go, okay, I see what I did wrong. But as of right now, I have to look at it very unbiasedly and go, okay, well, did I really enjoy this tracking mechanic? Like, did I enjoy like the kind of fireflies that led me to every single freaking item, no matter how irrelevant it was, things of that nature? And when I look at it, I can honestly say, no, I did not enjoy the tracking. There was not one time where I felt like I deserved to find the beast that I found. It always felt like it was mostly luck. It felt like maybe 30% skill to me and 70% luck. There was one time where I did a mission solo and I actually never found this freaking creature, and I'm like, come on, there's only so much map to explore. In 20 minutes I didn't even see him. So I just wasn't 100% sold on the tracking, and like I said, that could 100% be an issue on my fault, and if it is, or an issue on my part, then I apologize to you true Monster Hunter fans who will be able to put me in my place. But as of right now, I wasn't really too keen on the tracking. Now combat, originally I actually was really starting to hate combat. It was getting very if you ever play Warframe, I think Warframe is a good example. The sword fighting on Warframe to me is, I hate it. It's one of the reasons I don't play Warframe. I don't like those mechanics where it feels like I'm just randomly swinging at air. And because your character moves so slow when they're attacking, and they're kind of like defenseless, and they're left wide open for a very long amount of time, and it just takes them a brutal amount of time to recover from any attack they do. There would be times where I would swing, the enemy would leave, and I'm still in mid animation, and I'm continuing on my attack series, and finally once it ends, I'm sitting there and I'm still waiting, for it to end so I can recover and go after the monster, and it's taking a full 4 and 5 seconds. So when you're actually playing the game, it feels very slow and it drags on a lot. Now this seemed to be true of every weapon. The only weapon type that I didn't try out, which apparently towards the end of the beta seemed to be the best weapon, was I guess the bow. I think it was a bow at least. I know it was a long range weapon that seemed to be doing tremendous damage to a lot of different bosses. And maybe that weapon doesn't have that same issue, and maybe that's why people were using it more, or maybe it just did more damage, and I'm not certain. But what I will say is I did not like how long it took me to finish fighting to immediately change course and pursue my target. That's something that I did not like. Now, once I switched weapons, originally I was using like a big great sword, I believe it was, and you'll be able to see what I was using in my videos if you look at them. And then I switched to the dual wielded kind of blades that gave you access to like a demon mode. And I still never 100% understood what the demon mode did or how you charged it up. You know, I wish I could have, because maybe I would have done more damage. But once I changed to a quicker weapon, then I felt like I had a bit more control. And where this really becomes an issue during combat is that if you're slow, you know, some of these enemies hit incredibly hard. And I'm sure that's going to depend on, you know, your personal armor when the main game comes out. Maybe you have fire protection, maybe you have ice protection, maybe you have some type of knockdown resistance. You know, I'm sure stats like that come into play during the retail version of the game that will make the overall experience a lot better. But for me, there were a lot of moments where I was like, I need to dodge. I see the attack coming from a mile away, but I'm still in, you know, my attack animation and I can't cancel it. So things like that, if you're a person who's used to games that have a little bit more fluidity to them, you may find yourself going, man, this is very slow and the reaction time, you know, is a bit off. And I think that's a fair criticism of the game, but I think you also have to be open-minded and assume that maybe the issue could be on your end. It's almost like the early Resident Evil games where you kind of controlled your character somewhat like it was a remote control car. You know, this isn't the same thing. I'm not saying that, you know, you have to spin around in a circle or anything like that. I'm just saying that the controls for somebody who hasn't played the game may be a little off-putting, and you just need to kind of sit around, play with it for a while, and kind of get your own rhythm. And once you have that, I think you'll be okay. Anyone who's ever played the Armored Core series probably knows this feeling already. I mean, sometimes you just have to play a game for a while, and if you really like the concept, you really like the world they present for you, and you really enjoy just the atmosphere, the overall experience, then I think you do need to just give it a little bit of time and see if you can adapt and make the game work in the way you want. Now, the design, the overall monsters in general, to me, they felt good. I could definitely see where there could be a lot of repetition. I don't know, because I didn't play a lot of, like I said, I've never played a Monster Hunter game before. But what I hope doesn't happen is I hope we don't get dinosaurs that are very similar, but, you know, as you start to move into higher difficulty, you know, base missions where you have the same enemy you fought from level 1 coming back, you know, on level 30, and now all of a sudden, you know, he has ice powers. You know, I don't want that. I hope that's not the case, but I understand how much work goes into character modeling. So if they do choose to go in that direction, here's hoping that they make the encounters unique enough that I don't feel that repetition. If you've been listening and following along lately, you probably heard me say a lot of bad things about Destiny, and yeah, I don't want a bunch of recycled content. Let's just leave it at that. So, moving on, I feel like the online experience needed a little bit of help. It took me a long time to find games sometimes. Even when I hosted, it also seemed like it was taking a long time to find other players to join me. Now, admittedly, we were in the middle of the holidays. A lot of people are home from school. A lot of people are off work. So I understand that this could have been an issue between, you know, just like overloaded PlayStation Network. You know, it could have been an issue with my particular connection. Even though I was doing speed tests most of the week, and I was still getting close to around 220 down and close to like 40 or 50 up. So I don't feel like my internet was really giving me any issues, but I mean, you never know. It could have been inconsistent, so maybe that was an issue. Now, once the game got started, I never got disconnected from any games, but I definitely had a very hard time getting into games quite often. So much so that I would say, as far as the online experience goes, I would give it a 5 right now, because it was really hard to join up with people, and that could just be some minor tweaking that they need to do on their end. I mean, mind you, it is a beta and not a demo. So because it's a beta, what we have to realize is that there are bugs they are intentionally looking for and they want to fix. I mean, it's very hard to handle load balancing and, you know, really test your servers, you know, just running a bunch of scripts to do it. A lot of times you do need real data, and it seems like that's what they wanted to gather in the first place. So hopefully when the game launches, all those little woes will be gone. So in closing, if I had to grade the Monster Hunter World Beta, right now I would give it a 7. I really enjoyed what was there. I think if I was more familiar with the Monster Hunter franchise just as a whole, my grade may have gone up because I may have been more familiar and been able to access newer things, like been able to, you know, activate a lot of different environmental traps and things of that nature, and then maybe my hunting would have felt more like I was in control of it opposed to RNG, as far as how the animals kind of path themselves. But like I said, I'm not gonna 100% hold that to Capcom. I'm gonna take some of that fault myself, and then hopefully when the retail copy of the game comes out, I'll play it and that score will get a little bit higher. Now, to be fair, Capcom hasn't had the best track record as of lately, but we're gonna give them the benefit of the doubt and we'll see what happens. So as always, I'd love to hear what you guys think about the Monster Hunter World Beta if you played it. If you guys have been following, thank you for your continued support. Really means a lot, and I know you've probably heard us a couple times say we're coming back, we're gonna do more content. Threw up a lot of content in the month of December, but I don't feel like that's something that you guys shouldn't get every month. I would really like to be able to get in here and deliver a lot of content for you guys throughout the whole course of the year. And just so you know, one of the things that we've been doing is right now I'm actively looking into getting a video guy, you know, who has some film background, and really making a great show for you guys. So if you have been following up with us, thank you so much. In the month of January, we are going to start doing giveaways. So I really want to kind of reach back out to you guys, you one or two people who do actually click on these and kind of sit through them, and try to reward you guys as much as possible. So as always, guys, I'm King DX. Thank you for listening to my brief review from the Monster Hunter World Beta. We'll be back next year with a lot of different content. We'll be covering UFC, Dragon Ball FighterZ. I mean, man, the list of games is going to be enormous. So, as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.